Good morning, Mr. Thomas. Today's question is, what steps do you take to optimize software performance?
Yeah. Thank you, Lavanya. Good morning to you also. Thank you for the question. Uh, so in terms of software performance, first of all, let me explain what it means. Software performance is how fast is a software functioning and how quickly is it giving results. For example, if a report is being run, how fastly is the report coming? Or if a user is interacting with the software, how fastly it is responding, the performance. Okay, so that is one of the ways of or a visible way of measuring performance, wherever a software is installed. So what happens typically for a software is when there is a B2B software or a software that functions inside an organization and the number of users are very less. Let us say that 5 or 10 people are using the software. Uh, the it might not really make any difference in terms of software performance. It doesn't really matter because 5 or 10 users, they may not even feel the performance difference, and they may say it's all working well. Okay. But what happens is when a software is running in a very large organization where there are, let's say, 500 or 1,000 plus users, at that time, the software will start becoming slower because of the more number of users being actively using the software, or the hardware not being able to support the demand that is there, and the software starts slowing down. And even when there is a B2C application, that is a business to a customer application, again, when there are very large number of users where thousands of users are using the software simultaneously, concurrently, at that time the software starts malfunctioning. It starts slowing down. Sometimes the server stops responding. So all those things happen, and that is where the software performance optimization becomes very, very critical. So few approaches that we take care in, especially when the number of users are very large, is that we try to minimize the database interactions in the software. So what happens is when a software is running, there is always a need for data retrieval and data update. So if we can write the code in such a way, or the architecture in such a way, that the number of interactions, database interactions, are minimized, that itself will start increasing the performance of the software. For example, instead of interacting with the database continuously, we can enable something known as cache, where the entire data is stored in the memory itself, and the operations can happen much faster rather than continuously interacting with the database in a physical format. So that is one way of doing it. Another way that we ensure to increase the speed is by using memory more than going to the database. That is using arrays. Okay, I'm getting too technical here, but using the memory going rather than going to the database. And another development that we take up whenever performance has to be improved is using front-end processing. So what happens is a software sits at the back end, and the processor at the back end is operating to ensure that the functionality is working. But we can also shift some of the processing to the front end or to the client side, where the client processor is also functioning to take care of some functionalities of the software, maybe display or searching, those kind of things. So when you divide the load on the processor from the back end to the front end, also the overall performance of the software goes up. So that's another way we can increase the performance of the software. And one more way that we can ensure that very large softwares with multiple modules can function faster is by using a methodology called microservices. Microservices is basically a process. It's a methodology that is used where the entire software is divided into multiple modules or multiple services hosted on separate servers. And the advantage of that is there may be certain modules or functions which may need very high number of or very high CPU usage, processor usage, and those might be put into a separate server on its own. And all these microservices, they interact with each other to give a very seamless experience to the end user, the person who is using the software. So these are different ways to ensure that the software performance is always kept at high. And along with all this, of course, ultimately also ensure the optimal hosting setup. When we when we have the CPU and the RAM being set up in